I would like to invite our panelists to the front. And I would like to start off with the strijgers. Am I pronouncing it right? Marinique and David, welcome. Please make yourself at home. You need to cheer like they're celebrities. Awesome. And then, can I ask our other two panelists to please make their way to the front? Tiro and Tshegofatso. Setati. The Setatis. Can we cheer? Yes, like they are celebrities that they are. Please make yourself at home close to the...
Majestic.
So
Yes.
Tiro, where and how did you meet Tshegofatso?
How long do you have to answer this question again? There's his side, her side, and the real truth.
We're just setting the stage.
Take it away.
When did we meet? We met in Stellenbosch in 2015.
2015, yes.
Yes, 2015.
2015. You guys met in 2015 in Stellenbosch.
Yes.
We agree on 2015. That's the day to tell everyone.
Okay. I'm going to ask you to elaborate why there is a complication to meeting.
Okay, I can go. There's a deliberation which will persist until one of us leaves the earth because Tiro isn't sure of whether we met when she was in first year or second year.
Okay.
Which was either 2015 or 2016. So one of those 2 years. But we both agree on 2015, her first year. Yes.
Okay.
Even though I don't remember the actual time I actually met her.
You see the problem.
Yeah.
Okay. Throwing the ball to the strijgers. When and where did you meet? We're setting the stage.
We sort of knew about each other because we were in the same church. And then one day I saw him, what is that thing? Convergence. And I just came from a camp that really needs dudes to lead the camp. And I went to him and I was like, hey you, I think it's David. Do you want to come and serve on this camp? And there was about a 30 seconds of silence. And he looked at me, and his answer to me was, who is the authority of this camp?
Yes.
And my answer to him was, Jesus. And then I walked away and I told my roommate, this guy's weird. Because that's about the only conversation we had, and he just said, well, he'll think about it. And then, that I feel like was our first encounter. You have a different perspective of it, though.
Yeah, no, so just to paint the scene, it was Saturday of Convergence. I've been working with kids for about 2 to 3 days straight. My mind at that stage was running through a million things, but I didn't verbalize anything, so I just got to like the final question without saying anything in between. So it was literally that thing of, okay, cool. I'm quite tired right now, so I really want to give a quick answer for this so I can actually go on my break. So I was going through, this sounds cool. Okay, let's see, camp. Okay, I don't know when, where, what. Okay, the last one was sort of mixed up in this. You can get yourself in a weird situation when churches come together. Sometimes that's not always the best thing. So I'm just trying to figure out, where did this camp come from? What's it about? And instead of asking what's it about, I just ended up going, who is the authority over the camp? So there is actually a reason why I asked that question. But
it's a good reason.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
what was in that encounter? What was your first impression? Like, you said that this guy is weird to your roommate. And yours, David, what was your impression of the lady, not the camp?
To be honest, I didn't actually have much of an impression. It was like, okay, this is cool. My mind was so flat at that point. There was a stage later in our getting to know each other, where sort of at that first impression was like, wow, this is really a cool girl. At that stage, I was just, I can now go and rest. Thank you, the conversation's over. This was weird. But
Did you go in the camp?
no.
Okay, you guys have to tell me.
Okay, wait, let's change, I'm sorry, we're going over time. Let's change it to the first time we noticed each other as potential. Yeah, I think that's a better one. Is David's birthday.
Yes. Yeah, so that was at my 28th 27th birthday, I can't remember. One of those two, and we were playing volleyball, and there was this moment where I saw while we were busy playing volleyball. And just, yes. Yes, like this, like this. Just like, okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
That gives a lot of context to
Who we
your
are.
passion for volleyball.
And David was playing piano. And I
Okay.
was like, oh, so this guy might not be so weird.
Okay. Mr. Sitatu, what was your first impression of that first year in 2015?
Didn't make much of it, to be quite honest with you. So the only reason we met is because my then roommate, he was friends with Tiro already. So that whole meeting was basically in Stellenbosch. Hey, petty person, here's another petty person for you to meet. Meet each other, be friends. So we met, and yeah. How are you? Good, you good, good. That was just our interaction on campus. We were acquaintances in 2015, 2016. So yeah, can't say much about something that you can't remember either.
So, Mr. Sitatu,
Yes.
when was the first impression that he made on you that lasted?
You. The first. That's a really good question. I would probably say the day we saw you at the Bible school. So we were both in Stellenbosch University, and we went to Shofar, and they also had the Bible school there. And he was working in Pretoria already, so like my housemate and I went to the Bible school, and we were like, what are you doing here? Like, you've been gone for like 6 months. Where are you coming from? So when we saw him, we were like, yo, where have you been? It's been a while. Are you okay? You good? And the way he just answered was just so like, he was so chill. He was so kind, very like, very demure, yeah. But it's like, it's almost like when you meet Tiro, I think maybe anyone can attest that knows him. It almost feels like you've known each other forever, almost. Like no time has passed. So I feel like that was the case with us as well. We hadn't seen each other in a long time. And we weren't like actual friends since 2015. And the next time I saw him at the Bible school was 2020. So it was just like really cool how friendly and kind he was. Yeah, those were my first impressions.
Good
So-
answer, Steve.
So who made the first move?
I did. Why is that a question? Obviously, I did, yes.
Can you remember his first move?
Yes, I can. Well, if you're talking about first movers and like dating, is that the
Yeah.
first
In pursuing.
In pursuing, yes, I can remember. So, we've been friends and dated long distance. So he lived in Pretoria, I lived in Limpopo. So we've always long distanced, and we would see each other every now and then throughout the months. But there was this one time in August where he came to Polokwane to come see his family. And the Sunday, he always leaves early, so that he gets to Pretoria on time. And now it's like 11 a.m. and I'm like, bruh, aren't you supposed to be on the road already? Like, you're late, But we're meeting up in one of the mall parking lots, and we have our conversation, shop. And then he says, he gets so serious. He's like, chill. Yeah, I've just been thinking, and I wonder, like, would you like to be more than friends? I was like, what you mean? But it was like, sorry, I have to put this in there. Guys, like the way he said it, he made it seem like our friendship was so boring. So I actually thought he was breaking up with me as a friend. And I was like, am I boring? Like, are we breaking up? Like, what's going on, But anyway, then he was like, yeah, I want to do this life thing with you. But yeah, I'm giving you time. You can pray about it, you think about it, and let me know. And then he left to Pretoria. And I was like, oh, did that just happen? I didn't even know he liked me. So, yeah.
Strijgers. Apart from the volleyball, when and how did the first move happen?
Okay, so we have different opinions about when the first move happened. So we were at a mutual friend's birthday celebration, I think it was February 2023 at the start of it, and there was a pool table. She's quite good at pool, just saying, like really good. So started playing pool a bit, and sort of towards the end of it, she looked at me over it, and this is where the interpretation of the moment differs. In her mind, she was just like, I really need more friends in my life. I need to find more friends. So she asked me, like, would you like to come for coffee? And I'm like, okay, great. When? And she's like, now. I was like, okay, this is 11 at night, but great. So, yeah.
10:30.
Yeah. So the first invitation came from her. But I think in my mind, I took that as okay, the door is open, and I started pursuing her from there. But when it actually came to the, okay, are we moving forward or not, that was me. So, yeah.
Awesome. Do you agree? Do you want to add something to that?
Yes, just a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay. The ladies know my testimony. So it was a phase in my life where I really had to get some healthy relationship with men. And I just made a bunch of friends, and I wanted more friends. So when I looked at David, I was like, oh, this guy's actually solid. I wonder if we can drink a coffee. And then I just asked him. And from there on out, everything I did, he was there.
Well done,
Yeah.
David. He saw the gap and he took it.
Yeah. Yep.
Even if he wasn't invited, he was there. No, I'm joking.
So, I'm going to combine this next question. The next question. So, sorry. How long was your dating and engagement phase?
Okay. Our dating phase was from 2021 to 2024, so 2.5 years. Engagement phase, controversial. If you know, you know. Engagement was a few months, August, September, October, November, 5 months, 4 months, 5 months, yes.
I don't know.
Explain
Okay,
the
we're married now, it's
controversy.
fine. So, we dated 2.5 years. And then in February of 2024, I proposed to Tiro in Polokwane, in the hills, in the forest. It was beautiful. So put a ring on it, let the parents and everyone know, and then it was very hush. Absolutely no one except a friendly handful of a few people knew about the February thing. And then, because between February and August, it was family organizing, Lobola and Magadi and all of that stuff. And all of that stuff was coming to conclusion. So like August, that's when things got concluded, and then we let the rest of the world know. So depending on who you ask.
That's very. We'll get into more of that a bit later. Dating and engagement.
So I think David pursuing or after the friend thing, it was 5 months. Then we started dating the
April 2023.
Yeah, April 2023. Then we went out for, I think it was 8 months. Then we got married. Then we got engaged, and we were engaged for 6 months.
Engaged for 6 months. And you guys were from February to August,
Part 1.
part 1. And then from August to married?
Part 2, yes.
How long was that time?
From August to December.
Oh, that was so
Yes.
faster.
Yes.
Okay. So, and how long have you guys been married?
We've been married, I should know this.
9 months on Sunday.
You hope I know this. 9 months.
9 months.
9 months now,
Wow.
yes.
And the Strijgers?
15 months.
15 months. It's almost a year and a half.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So just over a year.
So, I'm going to ask you for your worst pre-marriage memory. So, who wants to think longer? Tiro is grabbing
My
the mic.
answers are right here.
Okay.
Long distance, absolute trash. Throw the whole thing away. That is my worst memory. Long distance for 2.5 years. Horrible.
No, between dating and engagement, before marriage. No, before marriage.
Okay, I can share mine. It actually happened just before I officially asked her out. Yeah, so I'm going to be very, very open with you guys because that's the point of tonight. So I'm one of those people that are blessed with overactive sweat glands. You know, at the start of the relationship, almost every time before I go to sleep, I make sure I shower, I make sure that, that everything's in place. And I think about, after a couple of weeks, there's one day after work, I'm like, okay, I've got enough time to go home, but I don't think it's necessary in any case. Okay, so I go over to, we're getting ready to go to a conference that evening. And then there was this moment of her being super honest as she is, very gently. She was just like this sort of nudge moment, like, hey, did you bring any deodorant? That's the moment where you're like, Jesus, I am ready. You can come right now. Like I am. So at that point, I was like, okay, that was probably it. She's going to like send me flying after this. So that was like probably the worst.
Yeah,
moment.
and then actually that evening I shared a bit of my testimony in front of you. So it was like, wow.
Ladies and gents, guys,
Yeah.
if she asks you if you brought deodorant and she's still interested,
Come on.
put a ring on it.
Come on.
Absolutely.
Even like if she asks if you've brought deodorant, put a ring on it, because that means that she loves you enough to let you know.
I just have to say, I thought really hard before doing that. It was like, I really don't want to embarrass this guy. Oh, but I really want to sit close to him. So.
And is that your worst memory?
No, my worst memory was, I think, our first discussion about finances, because our take on finances was quite different. I was just like, I thought David was just going to pay for everything and that's how it's going to go. And in David's mind, just how we were brought up, David is very responsible with money. So he has a set budget in his mind for me for a month while we were dating. And I didn't know that. And I couldn't understand, like sometimes he'll be like, I have to pay as well. And I was so confused with that. So I also just asked him, and I think that caused the discussion of going into our different backgrounds. And it ended up, I think it was a week later, where we spoke about where we went to Aroma.
Yep.
Yeah.
Roughly a week.
There I knew, wow, this guy. And then he took the chair when we had the discussion after the first sort of fight. We had a discussion. He put the chair in front of him and he said, sit. And I sat down. I was like, okay, it's coming. And he's like, okay, this is my budget. This is you on the budget, and this is the amount that I can spend on you every single month. That includes flowers, that includes dates, and that includes everything I want to do with you. So I am very intentional about you. Don't look past it.
That is a very bad, good memory.
Yes. That's how I feel like if you ask me about bad memories, it was very difficult to get one. But it starts bad and ends good.
So I hope that you guys sort of got an idea who these people are sitting in front of you, how they know each other, how they met, and sort of some of the challenges that they had to face. And we all know, just from the get-go, that if we try to engage in any sort of romantic relationship, we have the expectancy that there are going to be challenges. And some of us feel like we face all of the challenges all the time, and God is just something against you when it comes to romantic relationships. But the reality is that we all face challenges. And tonight, we really want to get into when two people choose each other, then you really got to start facing stuff. The heart and the intentionality behind tonight is to talk about what do you got to face. And obviously we won't be able to cover everything. But it's just to have a conversation around what sort of questions do we need to ask? What sort of things do we need to prepare ourselves for? If you, the way, in this moment when you're sitting where you are, knowing that you are hoping that one day you will be in a relationship if you're single, or knowing that maybe you are already married, you will either know that there are stuff that you need to share and that you don't want to share with the person that you're going to choose for the rest of your life. Maybe you have shared it in your life and that has caused pain and fighting, and pray to God that you've gotten through that. But hopefully tonight we can shed some light on how to face these things. So, back to the Tshegofatso. You mentioned this interesting engagement process. And I'm very uneducated. You guys are petty. What's the usual standard process? What does it look like when approaching marriage for a couple? What is the standard petty process?
Okay.
Go, I think you have more
Sure.
context as the man.
Cool. Okay, I wouldn't say it's necessarily a petty only situation. It's more basically many African, it's a multi-African situation.
See, that's the assumption I'm not allowed to make.
Many Africans go through this, but I can give it from a petty context. So when one is intentional and serious about getting married, step one, this is what I was informed. First, you let the parents know. You don't necessarily let the partner know for familial reasons. So, okay, I'll give what is done, and then maybe later on I'll give what I did. So number one, let the parents know. So I let my parents know that there's this girlie that I've been eyeing for a while, and I'm very interested in marrying her. Yes, girlie. Very interested in marrying her. And then they're like, ooh, okay, sounds good. We will take it from here. Which is very interesting. It's not what I expected. But when they say we will take it from here, they mean that they will then organize a meeting with the girlie's parents. They will meet up and be like, okay, our son has told us this. He has these intentions. He wants to do this. He wants to marry your daughter, basically. And then they both agree that, okay, we will go forward with this, and her parents will then let her family know, and then they will organize a date for both families to come together to discuss how this marriage is going to go ahead in terms of lobola and how much that will be, what gifts we will decide to bring, and yeah, just discussing the logistics of how this marriage will be initiated. So from what I can remember, there was a date later on that was organized where both families met up, and that's where a delegation from my family, the way that petty people do it, I'm not sure about other ethnicities, they do it, is that the delegation from my family is actually my aunts who go on my behalf. So it's a few of my aunts, and my sister went as well because she met Tiro before. So they go knock on the gate, and we're like, hey, we are here from the Tshegofatso family. We've been sent here. We've heard that our son is interested in your daughter. Then they let them in. After letting them in, they discuss the amount, the gifts, the dates, and all of that. And then after that initial meeting, they come back home to the family, to the internal family and discuss, okay, this is what we discussed, this is what is expected. They're expecting us on this date, so in the meantime, let's organize all of this stuff, and then a few months later on, go back for part 2 with all of the gifts and whatever was requested. They give that as the gift, and then that is basically the August period. Like, okay, they came to finish off what they started, so now let's celebrate. These 2 families are gonna join in marriage. There will be a later wedding date on said date. That's how it basically goes down.
Wow. That is so is that exactly how your journey, what your journey looks like? Because you mentioned your aunt and your sister went, and from Tshegofatso, from your family, what does the interaction look like? Did you go to your parents? Did your parents learn for the first time from his parents that this is his intentions, or did they know before that?
His intentions, no. So what had happened was, the real truth is, so my parents knew that Tiro and I were dating, but they didn't know like how close we were in terms of the marriage
Can I
talks.
interject quickly? My parents didn't. They let me know specifically that they do not want to know of any girlfriend until you bring her to say that I want to marry her. Okay, carry on.
Yes. So my parents would have liked for me to tell them if I'm involved with someone, hence why I told them. But yes, so I hadn't let my parents know that I was like doing marriage prep with Tiro, so they had no idea like how far in our relationship we were. But the day Tiro proposed to me in February, when I got home, I had my engagement ring on. And I asked my sister to bring my parents to their room so I could show them, so basically like break the news. And so I walked into the room, and then I showed my mom, and I was like, hey, Mom. And she looked at my hand, and she was like, is that from a lucky packet? Not because she was unimpressed by the ring. She was just like, it was so out of her mind that I was already getting married, and she thought like it was a joke, almost kind of a thing. So she was like, where did you get the ring from? Like, you know? So that's how my parents knew that Tiro and I were we were serious and we were getting married. And then, like Tiro said, his parents contacted my parents, and that kind of sort of solidified the whole thing. Like, yes, I said that we are getting married and that's the intentions, but I think it took the confirmation of his parents coming over and saying, hey, our son is interested in your daughter, you know, so that was the interaction, I think. And what was really cool was that our fathers actually knew each other from way back when. So they kind of grew up in the same like Christian circles, they knew each other. And we found out later on as well that like a lot of our family members actually knew each other. And the whole time I was like, God, thank you, Tiro and I are not family, because that would have been so wild. Oh man, it would have been heartbreaking. How close our families were. But yeah, the interactions were really, really beautiful. I think the fact that both our, families are believers, the fact that we are believers, the fact that our parents knew each other, it just made the whole journey so simple and so comfortable, and everyone was just so kind and gentle. It was just so easy to go through. I know that's not the story for a lot of people, just because of those dynamics. Like, you could be partnered with somebody that doesn't believe, or your parents don't believe, and it makes the journey a little bit harder because you're not in unity about some of the things, and the smallest things, like which gifts to bring, whether or not the bride-to-be deserves this amount of lobola, like all these little nitty-gritty things within the cultural process or the traditional process. it can be so hard because of people's different beliefs and different opinions. But when you have, a family that believes the same thing and you walk in unity, it just makes everything so easy. And I think, it's one of the things I'm incredibly grateful for our journey. Yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful. Like, that really is a blessing if you have parents on both sides really love the Lord, and it's a rare feat. Strijkers, we are coming to you now. In what way in that process? So, Tiro, you first asked Tshegofatso to marry you in the mountains in Limpopo, in the forest, and then you told your parents.
Actually, the other way around. I planned this. This was very well planned. So one weekend, went from Pretoria. I told my parents, hey, I'm coming home this weekend. Can we have a chat? Okay, cool. So what had happened was the Friday when I got home, I had chat with parents like, hey, there's this girl I'm interested in, really keen to marry her. That's the news. And then it was supposed to be the Saturday, but something happened, couldn't make it the Saturday. The Sunday, that's when I proposed to Tiro. And then that's where I got her parents' numbers to send back to my parents for them to start the discussions. Yes.
Okay. And so pardon my keenness to detail. I'm super curious about all of this. I have one more question for you. That can wait a bit. So hold your thoughts. I'm going to hold my thoughts. Strijkers, just going to barge right in there with the question. Who of you had the most baggage going into your relationship?
If I can jump in there, it's like at the start of our relationship, I was pretty sure I had most of the baggage coming into this. It was a whole lot of family stuff. I come from a very broken family, unfortunately. But I was like, sort of, this is going to be it. And then as we got to know each other, I think both of us had a lot of baggage. So.
Yeah, when we just went through the questions the other night, we pre-prepared. We tried it. We realized that David thought he had the most because of family, and I thought I had the most because of past relationships. Okay. A little bit of context. I don't know how many relationships I had, and David had one. And I have a mother and father who's been married now for, how old am I? I am 29. For 33 years. And David's parents split up when he was very young. Yeah.
So when was the first time that you actually had these conversations, facing these skeletons that you had in your cupboard?
So this is really a process. It started out as informational conversations at the start. I mean, like the very first time that I took her for a coffee, we were still just friends. Then there was nothing serious at all. It was just the info of, like, hey, my parents are split up, because that was important for me to put up front. And because it's not just that, my dad's in jail, was in jail as well at that point. He was already out on parole. And it was important to me just to put the factual info out there. So it wasn't this whole deep emotional discussion about what it means to me, about what it did in my life. All of that stuff came way later in the relationship. But sort of that factual thing, because to me it's just about being honest and open up front about what a relationship would entail from. And then I think the first time that I really came to the realization that, there's stuff in her past as well that I'm definitely going to have to work through and deal with, was the same infamous deodorant evening. So that one's sort of like, it was and that was just the same. That was just when I was like, okay, there's more that happened in her past than I know about.
I differ with David here because the first date we went on, I was like, okay. I asked him before we went on the date. I was like, is this now a date? And I was like, yes, this is a date. Because there's a backstory to that as well. I'm not going to go into it. But I was like, okay, well, if he is really intentional about dating me, he needs to know about a couple of stuff. Especially just about things I was still working through. Yeah. Yeah.
So it was a process that you started very early in your friendship and relationship.
Yes, I think during my journey with the Lord, I've learned about that scripture that says, guard your heart above all else. And in previous relationships I was in, I would just share everything and connect as quick as possible. So I knew that I wasn't going to share everything at once. And I knew that the amount of sharing that I did had quite a big impact on how I felt about someone. So there's the version of my story that I would basically share with anybody. We spoke about it on Tuesday as well. When your battles, don't put your pearls in front of the swines. But there's a version of my story I would share with anybody. But then there's a version of my story that gets deeper, and I think I shared more of it as we continued. But the easy version I gave on the night that we went on our first date. Yeah.
So I just wanna pop in there. This idea of throwing your pearls to the swines. I often get it wrong, and I say, don't throw your swines to the pearls. This idea of throwing your pearls to swines, it's such an important thing to remember in life, but also especially in growing in intimacy with a person that you are trying to love exclusively. Because the right people at the wrong time can also be pigs. So even though this is the right person, if the time is not right, then it would be like throwing pearls in front of a pig. They are just going to trample on top of it. It will mean nothing for them. You will get hurt. That's what happens when you throw your pearls to swines. You get hurt. So I just wanted to mention that the right person at the wrong time can also be a pig. So we're going to hold that then there, and back to the Sitatis. Now I'm making this difficult for myself. No. So you guys went through like, Tshegofatso, you mentioned that you guys were doing like a marriage prep before you got engaged. So you guys were really intentional about this. You were following God. You were praying about how to do this. And then you came to this moment, Tiro, where your parents said, we'll take it from here. And then you had all these, your aunts coming over and all these traditions that you went into. So you mentioned that there's a standard, there's a cultural standard, and then there's the way that you did it, and differs slightly. So I'm going to jump the gun and say that your story, your journey looked different to the standard, the norm of the culture in some ways. But you still went through a lot of the processes. Why did your journey look different? How does a Christian journey through the cultural norms look different in your culture? And why would it look different? Why don't you want to go into all of the traditions?
Good question. I think I'll piggyback off of what wife shared, that it's such a blessing. That it's such a blessing to have both sets of parents and families that are believers. Because I think, we really are shield. We don't know what we don't know, and that in itself can be a blessing. Because I can imagine, just traditionally, there are some things that are done in preparation for marriage that really are not godly. But because of the families we come from, because of our upbringing, our parents actually did the filtering for us. So in terms of the gifts that were exchanged, the ceremonies, if any, that had to be practiced, there was nothing that I can say, no, that is ungodly, we're not going to do that. I think the parents, from their upbringing, them coming to the Lord and then seeing that, okay, this we want to continue in our family lineage, this we're leaving behind. They did all the filtering for us, and then the process that we had to go through, it was beautiful, it was simple, it was easy for us. So I think in that way, just being a Christian and following tradition, yeah, it is important for you to ask the questions of, okay, we do this, why do we do this, why do we not do this? I did have those questions to my parents, and the answers they gave were really good. So, yeah, I do think they really showed me and showed us a really good way of practicing tradition but honoring God in that. Yeah.
That's beautiful. Is this idea that, well, as Christians, we often are afraid of traditions, afraid of traditions that are not clearly, that don't clearly stem from the Bible, and even traditions that we see practiced in the Bible, we very easily shy away because we don't want to fall into practicing law and worshiping the law for the law's sake. But I think that we forget that we can restore. Like God restores, and He redeems, and He renews. And instead of being so afraid and going into a complete different direction of religiosity, in a bad sense, not that religion is... Yeah, that's a word. I just made it a word. Okay? All words are new. They were new sometime. So, we can so easily just run away and then fall into a different form of law. But to keep our eyes focused on Jesus, knowing that, we are obedient to Him and His guidance. That is always the focus. And I love how you say that there was nothing that you saw that you were like, that is not godly. That I don't want to do that. And what a blessing parents like that are. I mean, but that's the thing, is to, as Christians, keep our eyes open and see what is in front of us. I think Tina mentioned last night, she said that she learned, God taught her how to think about life, how to take a moment and consider what's in front of her. And that's so beautiful. He brings that discernment. The Spirit brings discernment in that. If there are things that tradition brings in that you don't agree with, then there can be very difficult. It can be very difficult in families in facing that. I mean, you guys really are blessed in your testimony, and that's beautiful. But I think that's on the lesser side of things. Strijgers. Okay, so we went from you guys had a wonderful way of meeting and just Marinique being bold and straightforward.
Very bold.
And David, I think that there's something of your kind-heartedness that just shines through in the way that you handle this, but along with that, kind but stern, Like God is teaching us how to do this. This is how we're going to do that. And that's something that's beautiful for me from both of you guys. Is the way that God taught us we're going to stand on God's word. You guys did the marriage prep before because that was what was important to you. Don't even think about the process of getting into, well, obviously you're thinking about getting engaged when you're doing marriage prep, but you have to do, that was what was important for you. And it's beautiful. Even before telling your parents, you were like, we're doing marriage prep. That is beautiful. If I come back to the strijgers. In your process, now you were dealing with these things, and you were gradually, as you were growing, you were sharing more of the baggage, because that's something that you have to start facing, is the damage that that person is carrying with them, and the struggles that they are carrying with them. How did you manage? And I don't want to say to get over each other's past, because I think as Christians we should go through it. But how did you manage getting through that?
Having a community that keeps you accountable. So if there's one piece of advice, or one of the two pieces of advice I would give to couples, it would be find a couple. You are sitting here actually. John and Yoa, they were our couple. So before we started dating, we weren't close friends with them, but they modeled such a beautiful marriage for us that we just saw in church, and the way that they engaged in church. And then we decided to approach them. And I would have separate coffee dates with Yoa, and David would have separate coffee dates with Jean. Because sometimes, always, most of the time, when you are dating and in this process, there are certain things that you think is only, it's you're the first person that's going through it, and it's only me that's going through it. And actually, if you just talk to a couple, you'll notice they also went through it. And I think there's just one time that you are, actually a couple of times, she's like, that's okay, that happens. And I'm like, really? And you can chat to them. And then, because of community and because of that, I remember one day where I spoke to a friend about David. So it's one of my very good friends. She was with me in university. And I looked at her and I said, I just don't know if this guy is guy enough for me. Like, is he man enough for me? Like I was so harsh and so judgy about it, because there's this toxic standard that the world gives us of what masculinity should be, and I was forming my image of it according to what the world says and not according to God's heart. And she looked at me and she says, "Are you taking this relationship seriously?" And I said, "Yes." And then she says, "Well, then you are not acting like a woman that has a Christian heart. And you are not acting like a child of God right now. Because women, where is your grace? And why would you treat a man like that?" Do you want to? Yes, so I had to stand back there for a second and really go, okay, Lord, show me what traits of you did you put in David. And then after that, beautiful man. Wonderful. What was your answer?
Sure. I think a large part of it starts long before you even meet the person. There, in my life, especially when it happened with my parents and my family, is really, there was a stage where I had to deal with everything that came from my parents' side, and to learn to forgive, and I had to learn how to choose to forgive. And there are some questions that you have to settle in your heart before you step into a relationship. So just an easy one, unfortunately, just because of the society we live in, almost 99.9% of us have some form of a sexual past before you're married. And you need to sort that. I had to go and sit with God beforehand, and I had to go and sit with him and be like, okay, if I meet someone that has certain things in their past that perhaps was in a sexual relationship before, whatever the case is, what am I going to do with that? Because yes, the details look different. Yes, the exact situation is never completely the same. But there is a place of me having had to settle that in my heart with God first, being able to say, You know, God, if we're being completely honest about this, according to God's standard, with my own journey with pornography, there's no difference. The only difference is that in my history, there wasn't necessarily another physical person involved in my sexual history, but in God's eyes, it's exactly the same. There's no difference. And if I would expect someone else to forgive me, then I definitely need to be able to forgive them as well. So for me, going into the relationship with, that's just an example. There were other stuff as well. And then what my wife shared as well, with just having accountability people around you, people that can speak into your life, was a big one. But another side of it that I just wanted to dip into a little bit is just the spiritual warfare side of it. So any godly relationship does come under attack, and it doesn't stop once you're married. In fact, it gets a lot more difficult. And the reason I mention that is there's an important distinction to make between what my feelings are in a situation, about when she shares something with me, just what I emotionally go through, and that's important to actually work through that emotionally as well. But then there's a spiritual side to it. And there's a spiritual side of a lot of the stuff that happened in her life was because of spiritual attack. And being honest about being able to frame that, to know that, you know what, yes, some of the stuff was decisions she made, but not all of it. And knowing when, and that's really where you need the Holy Spirit, is knowing sometimes some of the stuff that bothers you, or that you feel like this is baggage that I can't deal with or don't know how to deal with, gets made so much worse because of the spiritual side of it. And most of the time, it really isn't actually that big. The one analogy that John Eldridge uses, which helped me to frame this quite a lot, is basically like when there's a disagreement, or when something comes up that you see something in the other person that you don't like, or something in their past you have to deal with, and often in your own past as well, because you bring out stuff in each other. There's basically a campfire that starts. It's a small little fire. It's a fire. It needs to be dealt with, but it's a campfire. It's just a small little fire there, and the devil just comes and throws gasoline over it. And sometimes it's literally just a spiritual fight of saying, Paul writes in 2 Corinthians 10, that the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but mighty in God for pulling down strongholds. And sometimes you just have to face that spiritually and say, you know what, God, I'm not going to stand for this. I'm not going to allow this in my relationship. And then sort of the Holy Spirit eventually just brings that back down to a campfire so you can look at it soberly. And there might be things that for you are non-negotiable. There might be something in someone's past that you say, you know, this is one I'm not willing to deal with. But it's important to look at that clearly and not in the emotion of the moment or the heat of the moment, and after having prayed through it. Yeah.
Yes, please.
David has the incredible ability to separate a person from who they are, or who God made them to be, from what their past is, basically. And I think that's such a lovely image of the Lord, Him really knowing who we are and what we can do. And yeah, I think I want to add to that, to what you just said, is just in that moment, just separating who the person is and who God and what God has done in their life so far and where they are going, to be able to see that above what is currently playing off in front of you. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's really that when Paul talks about being equally yoked, it's not about finding the perfect person. Good luck with that. But there are some things that's like, okay, are you spiritually going the same way? And if that is true, which was definitely true for her, and she's still, I think the most beautiful thing for me about her is the fact that she seeks Jesus' heart. And knowing that, going into, oh, okay, there's stuff to deal with. It's like, okay, but God is bigger than this. And both of us are going to keep going back to Him when this stuff comes up. Yes, that we can deal with. That's dealable with.
So, I hope that you are still awake. Not because of speakers, because it's late. It is now 8 o'clock. I hope that you have questions. I honestly do hope. I'm not going to ask any more questions. I'm very curious about a lot of things, but I'm not going to ask any more questions. I want to open the floor to you. Before we do that, let's take a 5-minute break. Go to the loo, get something to drink. At 8:05 on the dot, let's be back inside, and we'll have the floor open and that seat filled so that we can ask some questions. Cool. Let's break. All right. Before we start with this fantastic Q&A, I would like to invite to the panel my beautiful pregnant wife. There is a baby boy growing in her stomach. That is a miracle. It is a miracle. Yeah. It's our first pregnancy. Our first child. So we've had sex at least once. I made that joke last night, but I'll never stop. So I would also like to introduce our runner. Will you please take your place in front stage? Where's your mic? Oh, do you have the mic? You have the first question. Oh, Marley got in here. Okay. So no, please stay standing. Stay standing. So you guys know who's the one that's going to pass you the mic if you have a question. So let's do this in an orderly way. Marley, you bypassed the system and technically already have your hand up. So you can ask the first question.
What is good first date or first, like in the friend zone, but also in the, okay, now it's potential. What is the very like need to know questions that you would advise people to ask?
Can I? Okay, my wife's also in on this one. I'll give a quick answer. Don't overthink it. Please don't overthink it. It's not, we want to try and make a formula out of everything. Our brains just want to do that. We want to find out what the steps are because we don't want to get hurt. And it's okay, especially at the beginning, you don't actually even have to ask anything. Just get to know the person.
No, I was like, if it's a first date, and it's not. Sometimes there is that, hi, I meet you, then it's a first date. Eh? Then I would advise try and have so much fun as you can, instead of sitting and having an interview. Because you're going to find something that they say wrong. Because you don't know them. And if it's not a first, if it's a first date and you have known them a while, then try and find fun for the two of you together, like something that you have in common, and grow in that, instead of luister, yeah.
If I could just throw the last thing in there, though, if it is a person that you really don't know and you have no idea where they are at spiritually, that's something I'd figure out very quickly. But that doesn't mean fall into the door and say like, hey, tell me your whole spiritual history now. But quickly. But it doesn't have to be, yeah.
Awesome. Next question. Matthias.
Okay. I'm asking this question on behalf of a friend. So we've got 8:30 hockey. Oh, that's not a question. My bad. This one. Okay. Was there ever a time when you were at different stages in your life where one of you had to change or pause something to accommodate the other or be with the other?
Please repeat.
Was there ever a time where one of you had to slow down or stop something to accommodate for someone else? They had to move somewhere, so you moved with them, or you had a big place in your job life and you had to pull back or stop to like accommodate for the other person with their goals or dreams or anything?
Practically, just like practically. Yeah.
Cool.
You wanna go?
I was just confirming the question that it's practical. Yeah.
Okay, I think we can go. Us, the poor souls who had to do long distance for 2.5 years, and then long distance for engagement, and then, yeah. So, yes, there has been a lot of sacrifice, I must say, for this to be sitting up here wedded. So, for us, yeah, long distance, the sacrifice of me needing to go and see her all of the way in Polokwane every other weekend, that was a sacrifice I was more than willing to make. So that went on. Again, I said all of dating, engagement as well, needed to sacrifice that. And then when we got married, Tiro had to leave her father's house to come and move and live with me all of the way in Pretoria. More sacrifices needed to be made. So yes, love is sacrifice. It's worth it though.
I want to jump on that. If you're able to establish early in the relationship, like, yes, this is the person I want to marry, because sometimes it isn't able to determine that very early. In our case, it was. And I think there's always going to be sacrifice. You're always going to have to accommodate the other person. Whether it be with job, whether it be with physical circumstances, whether it be with their emotional baggage or whatever, there's always going to be sacrifice. And that's such a big part of being in a relationship, loving someone, committing your life to someone. So yes, I don't think that there's a time where you establish like, okay, it's time to accommodate now. Like if you commit to a person, then you sacrifice. And you yeah.
A very practical example in our relationship is that, so when we started dating, Tina was doing her honors, and then at the end of her honors, she was praying on where to go, do her masters, or go work, or she was praying about what is the next stage of her life. And then one day, and I was sort of, I had so many plans to accommodate her. I tried to do TEFL. So I was busy doing my internship at Shofar in Potchefstroom, and I tried to get my TEFL degree so that wherever Tina goes, I'll be able to go there and teach. No matter what happens, I will run after this girl. She will not be able to run away from me. And and then I never finished my TEFL. TEFL is a teaching English and foreign language course, so, and never finished that. And there was a moment where I realized that if I really am serious about marrying Tina, I want to do that and live in Potchefstroom, in the community that we are in. I want to be in the community in Potch and be connected to those people and have those people around us in our first season of marriage. And so I sat her down one day, put the chair in front, and said, I'm staying in Potchefstroom. If you're not staying, it's over. And we were still dating. And I didn't try to put an ultimatum to her. I just very logically explained to her that we can try do long distance. But if you know Tina, she is task-driven, and she will forget the lonely boy in Potchefstroom. And I told her, you have passion for your career. You're going to run and go for it. If you're going to do that, then do that. And be sure that God is sending you to do that. But we cannot try and combine that with this long-distance relationship. And so she cried, and I cried, and then we went away and we prayed about it, I think, for a week. And it was about a week later, she said, randomly, we were chilling one day and we were talking, and it was like sort of like waiting for the conversation to happen now. And she just went, I'll stay in Potchefstroom. And yeah, So that was a practical way that we had to, that influenced the way we stayed for each other. Yeah. Next question. Nzibasiso.
So my question is, what would you guys say is the right time? Is it before being engaged or after being engaged, where you really go deep into your past, especially if you have two different past, maybe the other person, okay, in terms of like your sexual past, maybe the other person like is sexually innocent by the grace of God, but the other person, it's totally a different story. So is it during the dating or after you are engaged?
So I can just share the way that we approached it because we had exactly that situation. There was a point in our relationship, from the start, we sort of had that conversation. Okay, why are we in this relationship? Why are we doing this? And that conversation was, for both of us, like, okay, the point is we want to know if we are going to get married or not. And at that time, we sort of had this idea in our heads of, maybe a year is a good time to give it. We were engaged before that year was out, so that didn't quite happen that way. But it really is a progressive thing. For me, like before we got to that level of conversation, like the stuff about finances that Marinique shared, in that conversation there was a decision I had to make about, okay, because our upbringing is different. She views finances in way A, I see it in a different way. Am I willing to sacrifice to meet her there? Am I willing to put myself aside to give her what she needs in this? And that's sort of where that process started. And as it goes on, there was a point where, like, okay, you know what? Maybe it is time for us where we are now in our relationship. And that was before we were engaged, before we were discussing marriage prep or anything like that. It's like, we maybe need to talk a bit more about this. But again, it's a progressive conversation. The very deep things of her heart, she only shared with me after we were engaged. Like the very, very deep stuff. And I think that was exactly the right thing. Because if she did that too early, she would have gotten hurt, I would have gotten hurt. And I can't emphasize this enough. That is really a prayer, Holy Spirit, what now? Every single time. What do we do now? What do we do in this step? What do we do next? Because it's not the same. There's no blueprint we can give you. There's no, we did it this way, so you must too. That doesn't exist. These people are different. Situations are different.
I think one thing would be not at the start everything all at once. I think that's a very important thing. And I just want to connect it with the pearls and the swine again. You need to make sure that the person that you're sharing with is really somebody who loves the Lord. So I really trust that if you love the Lord and you really want to see that that person loves the Lord, that you have the Holy Spirit inside of you that is going to guide you in that. And I only knew when to share with David based on the fact, like, if I'm going to share this is going to mean this. So in other words, I'm going to share with David my very superficial testimony on our first date, but we've known each other a while, because the reason is that I don't want him to step into a relationship with a wrong view of what it can be. We were dating for 6 months, and then we only had our first kiss. David's intention was to kiss me on the day we get married. Okay, I thought it will go the classic route of holding hands, 2 weeks later giving hugs, 2 weeks later looking deep into each other's eyes, starting to kiss. But David's standard of purity was so much higher than mine. And that changed my standard of purity. So when it came to you mentioned specifically sexual things, I think it's important when something comes up, to, if it's needed, to establish a boundary around it. So, for example, if you are uncomfortable in something that is happening between the two of you, then that discussion is going to come up and you're going to set a boundary around it. For example, if after 4 weeks, David is only still holding my hand and I'm upset about it, I'm going to be honest about it. I'm not going to force him into anything, but I'm going to say, hey, so I've noticed that whenever I give a step closer, you retract and you do not want to be in my space. I experience that as a little bit of rejection. Can we talk about that? And that can lead into other things. That can lead into deeper conversations. But that's when we were dating. We had an intentional relationship. So I think there's very clear differences between just the phase of getting to know each other, dating, engagement. Engagement is the phase of transitioning over into spending your life with this person because you've already technically said yes. Then before that is a phase of do I want to marry this person? So that's a dating phase. And before that is, for me, I think you need to be friends with someone first. But that's not everybody's opinion. That's not always how it happens. So I hope that makes sense.
Question? I think we have one in the back first. Mr. Nelson.
Yes. I just wanted to know, how do you guys solve conflicts among you guys? That's my question.
Tina usually hits me with a tablespoon.
Oh, Tina.
Not really. Question is, how do you handle conflict? How do you handle conflict? That's the question, right? Yes. How do you solve conflict?
Okay, I'm gonna jump in there. From the very start of our relationship, Dihan has always been very adamant on protecting our connection. So whenever a conversation got heated or wherever we disagreed on something, Dihan was always the first one to say, okay, Tina, let's just take a step back because I'm not going to allow that this conflict or this situation is going to get between us. Like, it's okay if we disagree, but we need to stay connected. Like, our hearts need to stay connected. And that was much more difficult for me in the beginning than it is now. But I think, without elaborating too much, I think that's really, for us, that's really been a lifesaver, is keeping your focus on, is this conversation keeping us connected, or is this conversation separating us and causing distance between us? And I think if you can establish that, if you can keep the connection between you two, connection doesn't mean agreement. Like, it's okay to disagree while being connected with one another. Because the ultimate goal is, I want to get to your heart, and I want to love you now, even though sometimes I want to slap you with a spoon. But yeah, so I think that's like, for us, that's just like a foundational thing, is handling conflict.
Yeah, if I can just also add to that, how we solve most of our conflicts with grace and patience, and with understanding, because you learn and you realize that you are different people that come from two different backgrounds and worlds. The way that you solve things in general is different. And if you push someone to talk about something and solve the thing in the moment, and the other person doesn't deal with conflict or conflict resolution in the same way, it makes the issue bigger. And so for us, we are learning. We are still learning on how to be gracious and patient and understanding of how the other person deals with something. For instance, Tiro is very are you okay? Let's have the conversation now and let's solve it like now. Whereas for me, the way I grew up was very much like you deal with your own, I bottle things up and I deal with stuff on my own in my own time. So when we are having an argument or a heated conversation, often my response is to shut down. And then I would go into my own space and have, time with the Lord. And often the question that I would have with the Lord is, Lord, like, what is my heart? Where's my heart? Where am I wrong? And sort of get like the Lord's perspective on things from my side. And once I've had sort of like that basis with the Lord, then I'll come back to Tiro and be like, hey, that conversation that we had last time, so I was uncomfortable because, or I didn't want to do whatever the case is. But because I've spent time with the Lord, I have so much more grace for the person. And the issue is less of an issue now than it was before. Like, I'm not, like what Tina said, the issue doesn't seem as big as it was before. So, yeah.
An important thing is to communicate. You need to know your partner and the way in which they need to process this. So Tina and I are the same. I want to do this now, and Tina needs to take time. But we know that of each other, and we have that understanding. And so we need to have that understanding and get to know that understanding when we are not in conflict. So it's important it's part of getting to know each other. Next question. I think, there were a couple of hands in front. You guys can have a fist fight. Who's going to be first?
My question was, what advice would you give to a person who is in a relationship that is unequally yoked?
Do you want to answer? Why are you in a relationship that is unequally yoked? Yeah.
We have friends that dated before either of them knew the Lord, and then the girl got saved, gave her life to Christ a long time before the guy did, and everybody told her, "You are unequally yoked. You need to leave this man." And she didn't, because she trusted that God was going to change him, and she prayed for him. She prayed for him. She trusted that God was going to change him. She did not accept the uneven yokeness. And today they are beautifully married. And they are a couple that I just get goosebumps when I think about the marriage that they are in and the way that they love their friends as a married couple. And the point is that, yes, why are you in a relationship like that? But if you are unequally yoked and you are close to God, you will not idolize that person. You will be willing to let that person go. That person will, why am I in a relationship that's unequally yoked? And the only reason you do not break that relationship is because God is telling you not to. That can be the only reason. Otherwise, there is no, don't be there. Don't be there. You can be friends and you can invite a guy. Try and get him into church. Try and get him to small group, but don't date. What's the phrase?
Flirt to convert.
Don't flirt to convert. Okay. Don't flirt to convert. But there are situations like that that do happen. You have to have boundaries. And you have to know who God is, and that this guy is just a punk. And he's not God. And he can't manipulate to get anything out of you. You pray for his salvation. You don't try to save him. God will save him. Marley.
Okay, hectic question. But what was one of or the greatest fear you had going into like marriage, and then how did God meet you in that, or how did you overcome? Yeah, how was it redeemed?
Do you want to ask that to someone specifically? Because all of us had fears going into a relationship.
Who wants to answer it? Who's willing to answer it?
I'll give an answer because I recently had a revelation about this. I am a hopeless romantic. And we were challenged with, I had a fear that I didn't realize. I was afraid that it was in short, afraid of commitment. I had a massive fear of commitment that I didn't realize I had because I committed to marrying Tina within the first week that I told her I liked her. But then I had such a fear that it will not be everything that I expected it to be. I was so afraid that she is not the one. And I wanted, I was afraid of that. And then when I would pray, God would still come through for me in that. And but I was afraid that it will not be the picture. It will not be a photogenic marriage. It will not be the one that I read about in the books, that I saw in the movies. It wouldn't be perfect. And so, right after we got married, that fear manifested in a way that I did not want to share that with Tina. On our honeymoon, the first night of our marriage, I had this just as a disclaimer, honeymoons aren't movies. They aren't movie scenes. They aren't storybooks. Okay, just destroy that thought, because you'll hear me saying this now, and then you'll forget it, and then you'll start believing it again. Destroy the idea in your head that a honeymoon, that you have any idea what a honeymoon looks like. You have no idea. And because it wasn't this perfect picture that I wanted, that fear grabbed hold of me. And the very first day of our honeymoon, when we enjoyed our first sunrise together as a married couple, I had to tell Tina that I'm fighting this lie that God introduced someone better to me than you are at our wedding. And I had to tell her that. That's the level that's the stuff you have to go to that person with. And she had to listen to that on our first day of our honeymoon. And it's like, well, you got the ring now. You can't run away, so I better tell you. And the way Tina handled was with so much grace and love. And I don't know what the Afrikaans, the English word for it is, but dearness. And she handled me with so much grace, and she's like, thank you for sharing this with me. Let's pray. Let's destroy, because this is so clearly a fear and the way that Satan wants to get in there and destroy our beautiful marriage of one day old. Yeah. We can't take a lot more questions. Let's do 2 more. Yes, can someone please go put on the popcorn machine? No, someone from the back will go. And okay, so we have your question, and then who else had a question as well? Katlejo and Keke. Okay, we'll do those 2. Okay, yes.
So, I just want to ask for, some advice, because everybody always says, before you get into your relationship, you need to deal with your baggage and your spiritual warfare and everything before you get into the relationship. And, so I'm dating someone, and we have been dating for a while now. And I know we're still young, but I mean, we both have had some difficult challenges in our lives that definitely affect us. And we got together before I was saved, and he has always been in the church. And I went to a Catholic school, so I believed in God, but I never practiced my faith or actually gave my life to God. And then when we were dating, he took me to his church, and the first day I went there, I got saved, all that. So we didn't start our relationship off in a God-like manner, right? So obviously when we've like grown in our faith and we've tried to turn our relationship more godly, you know what I mean? But I just want, like, is there any advice into how we can manage our baggage now while we're together that we haven't sorted out before we were together? I don't know if
I think there's an element to, yes, sorting out some baggage before you go into a relationship. But there's no way on this entire earth that you will get to know all your baggage while being single. Because just remember, you're still single now, even though you're in a relationship. Like, you're not in covenant before God. I mean, there's still baggage now that gets revealed, and I'm more than 2 years married. So there's always gonna be something new that comes up. And so yes, there's a point of going to God and in your singleness and dealing with some stuff, but a big part of being in a relationship is sanctification. And that sanctification comes with seeing something that's in your own heart and saying, oh goodness, I haven't dealt with this before. I need to deal with this now. And when you're in marriage, you can't do that alone anymore. So you're never going to be able to sort everything out. I think that's a myth that this world tries to tell us that is totally untrue and unbiblical. Because what's the point of being sanctified? And so I'm going to leave it there.
If I can just jump in there as well, I think for us there's definitely an element, if I can use the analogy, that you are building a foundation. Even if this relationship ends, you're still building a foundation about how you deal with things. And that is something, it's basically a pattern that you start building. And that pattern carries on through marriage, through your relationship. So in my personal life, there was definitely stuff I had to deal with before getting married, just because of my history of family and a bunch of other stuff as well. But that stuff still pops up now and again. And there's still times where we have to have conversations about, and especially when it gets to the in-laws and things that happen in family context sometimes, where we have to be like, okay, there's this family situation now. This is why I reacted in this way. We need to talk through that. We need to work through that. So it's not dealt with in the sense that it's completely solved and it will never ever be an issue again or in that way. But there is a pattern of both of us going to Jesus, both of us working with that. And at the same time, I wanted to throw in there with the conflict thing as well. We've got a safety net. There are people that she knows I can go and talk to about anything in our marriage, and there's people that I know she can go and talk to about anything in our marriage. And that was true for our relationship as well. Yes, they do love the Lord a lot. Because sometimes there is, especially when that stuff comes up, and it's the same pattern thing, to go to someone else and to work it through with them. But okay, just be mindful of the time.
Katlego, eager.
So, what are the things that shouldn't be sacrificed in love before and after marriage? And how would you advise someone who's already sacrificed them?
Deep. Please elaborate. Yeah.
Your faith, maybe. Yeah.
Can I just quickly, maybe from a lady's perspective, and I don't know, this is my opinion. So yes, you touched on the faith thing. Definitely, that's not something that you sacrifice on for anyone or anything. I think the other thing, maybe for a lady, if before you're engaged, I probably wouldn't move to a whole new town or country for a boyfriend. Do you know what I mean? Because there isn't that sort of like a commitment. And you get people that get engaged and then somewhere along the line, it's not something that materializes. But I feel like there needs to be a lot more security and commitment for you as a woman, I think, to uproot your whole life to be with someone. And I say that because often, if not most of the time, it's the woman in the relationship that there's a lot in your life that changes. You are the one that moves out of your parents' home. Yes, the man as well, but you joining and creating a new family. So oftentimes your family is far away, the community that you grew up is away. A lot of things change for you. And please, I'm not saying that it's not the same for husbands or men as well. But I think with women, there's a vulnerability there as well. Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know if you guys have seen that. I don't know if it was a meme or a video, but the guy goes to the girl and he's like, "Can you do this for me?" And she looks at him and she says, "I'm sorry, you have put in a wifey level request. In order to get to that level, you need..." Okay. And I think in each phase, just to make it a bit lighter, but I think in each phase of the, like I mentioned earlier, there is certain boundaries that you should have. And you will, I think as you go along, by the people you surround yourself with, you will be quite aware of what those boundaries can be. I'm going to give a very simple example. Me and Yua spoke about it. That was different for us. One boundary, and this is a small one, but she, for example, is she here? Is it okay if I can share about the clothes? Okay. One boundary that she had was like, she's not going to shop for Jean before they are engaged, before they are married. Engaged. Like, she's not going to shop for him. She's not going to look for clothes for him, anything like that. Because that is yeah. She'll take pictures, and then she'll like, go do your thing, okay? But for me, I was like, oh, I would love to do this for David, because it wasn't such an emotional connection for me with regards to that. Just because I know that's something that he really doesn't like, but that was while we were dating. We weren't like friends. So there's interesting things that you come around as the relationship goes along, that you will have to establish boundaries in it. If you specifically ask what things, I would agree with the faith thing is a non-negotiable, because we believe that God is our Savior and our Lord Jesus Christ. And if anybody is pulling you away from them, then the best way to love them is to get them in a community that will point them to God, and not expect that their salvation lies with you. Yeah. And then, yeah. I don't know, I can't think of anything.
One thing that you sacrifice before getting married is your own selfish desire. Your want. It's something that we sacrifice. We sacrifice our desire to please ourselves in many ways. And you have to implement discipline. So in many ways, there's a time sacrifice of implementing discipline, and a comfort sacrifice in implementing discipline, and in loving that person well, in not stepping over boundaries. So you sacrifice the desire you have for marriage before you get married. And when you get married, the only thing you don't sacrifice is your faith. You lay your life down for that person. Yeah. Do you now buy John's clothes for him? He's dressed really well. You do a good job. He's dressed really well. Kiketso.
Can I add to Katlaro's question, echoing what Marinique's saying for the guys as well, that Something to not sacrifice. I think as guys, naturally we're protectors. We want to be there for a person. You want to show up. You want to be that person. But it's not necessarily a sacrifice. I think it's a boundary that you need to learn when you are not someone's husband. Don't try to be their husband. Don't try to be their father. Only wife. Only once married, then you can enter these very important roles in a lady's life. But before then, one needs to set the boundary of, okay, let's say in terms of provision, yes, I want to enjoy time with you, I want to spoil you with 1, 2, 3, but you have to set a boundary that this will not be a dependent now. I'm not your husband, I'm not your father. I need to set that boundary so that, yeah, there's healthy boundaries in this thing you call a relationship, that you're not feeding off of each other, she's not dependent on you, and unhealthy boundaries come from there. So I think from a guy's perspective, watch out for that.
So these boundaries exist because covenant exists. Like Genesis 2:24 says, and a man shall leave his mother and father and be joined to his wife, and they shall become one. That is what marriage is. Before that, you have not left your mother and father. So you are under their covering. It doesn't matter what your relationship with them looks like. It can be horrible, but your husband cannot step into the role of provider or the role that your father should be. Even though your father may be failing in that role, it's not the role for your boyfriend. Your husband should step in that role for your boyfriend to step into. As soon as he becomes your husband, then you come under his covering. And then he can be everything that he's supposed to be for you. And your father is not that for you anymore. And the same with guys. When as a wife, there are certain boundaries that you cannot cross because you are not his mom. You are not his mom. And it goes both ways. There are a lot of times where people get married and they struggle to leave their parents. And they're still dependent. That can get into a lot of different conversations, but it's about the spiritual dependence and the spiritual home. Your spiritual home becomes where you and your wife are one. Before that, it's with your parents. But when you are married, that's your spiritual home, and it's not your parents. Yeah.
All right. I would just like to know, how do you live out your faith without coming across as too strong or like too strict, especially with like setting boundaries and stuff? When would, I guess, like the ideal, when would you ideally want to set boundaries and tell this person, listen, I'm unwilling to do A, B, C, and D, without coming across as too strong? And another question that I have is like, what is the difference between partnering with somebody and without like being under their submission? Because that's for marriage, right? So yeah.
Really good questions. Who wants to go?
Okay. Commented under my breath, but to your first question, from the get-go, why would you sacrifice the boundaries that you've set for yourself, that you and the Lord agreed upon, to accommodate brother man's? Like, if you're starting now, why would you ramp up the boundaries as the relationship gets deeper? So, no, don't. If he can't handle the boundaries, there are boundaries you set, it's not the bra. There are other bras, yes.
Could you repeat your second question just again, please?
What is the difference between partnering up with somebody like in love versus like submitting? Like, I remember the discussion that your husband had with you with like in terms of finances and like sitting you down and telling you, listen, this is, the budget that I have, and like needing to be like, okay, I understand. Like what is the difference between that and like submitting to him in marriage?
Sometimes we confuse respect with submission. You can respect somebody's opinion and where they are at. So in other words, if I can respect that David has finances where he's going to spend an X amount on me, okay? But my authority is, at that stage, was still with my Father and my Heavenly Father. So if, I don't know, if David wasn't demanding on what I needed to do, he was just clear on how he approaches things. And I don't know, I don't think it was a form of submission to him. I think it was a form of respect. Because I think submission is when he gives me the space to really share what I believe about a topic, okay? And he shares what he really believes about a topic, and he understands the weight of what that decision is going to carry. And submission is me respecting then later what his choice is going to, whatever the results of that choice is going to be, I'm going to go with him on that. And that, yes, no? Okay. No, please. So, yeah, I think submission can come from respect. But I hope I made the point at the start and I'm not confusing it too much. David, do you want to add something to that, please?
Just let's just jump back to the finance example, just to give some more context to what happened there. So that conversation started saying, okay, we have a difference on how we view finances. Share the expectation that I will pay for everything that we do, within limit. There was a limit around that. Yeah, not all the money, but I grew up in a family culture and even in a friendship culture where it would basically be everybody covers themselves. They pay for themselves, and where I can, I'll step into. So the point of me having the conversation of saying, this is my budget, was just because of the practical implication. Because up until that point, we were doing a bunch of stuff. We were going out to different spaces, spent a lot of time doing activities, and it was just the reality of, okay, I hear where you're coming from. I'm willing to meet you there, but just know that means that we're going to do certain things less now because I have to pay for both of us. That was the point of that conversation. End of story. It was not yes. It was not, me having that conversation was not, I am now taking over the finances in our relationship. Not at all. It was her finances is her finances, mine is mine. It comes back to the boundary thing. It's the boundary of saying, what Tiro mentioned as well. She's not my wife yet. I'm not there to cover all her expenses. So practically what that looked like for me and the way I handle finances was to say, she is important to me. So I'm going to make sure that I put money aside every month for her. And that is what is available. That's what that conversation was about, to say, this is what I'm putting financially into this relationship, because obviously when I've got other stuff I need to pay, I've got to pay rent, I've got blah, blah, blah. This is what I can put on the table. I understand our view is different. I'm willing to meet you there, but just going to say that there's an implication of what activities we'll be doing now, because now I need to pay for both of us. And that was the heart behind that. It was not to say, I didn't step into a position of authority over her to say, this is how we will do it now. It was just, from my side, a boundary to say, this is where my finances are at, this is what I can give. And then from that point, it's her decision. She could be like, nope, that's not going to work. I need someone that can pay for 1 million stuff every week, goodbye. And that would have been her decision. And and if that was her decision, that's her decision. It's got nothing to do with me. If that's what she wanted, that's what she wanted. End of story. Does that help to frame it?
So, would you guys like to add anything? Okay, go Tina.
Um, Again, there's no recipe and there's no bulletproof or blueprint. But I think for me is because, like you said, submission, true submission or wholehearted submission, it's for marriage, right? But for me, there was a very, very prominent distinction between just dating and getting engaged and obviously getting married in the spirit, not just physically. So when we were still dating, for me, that was like a phase of, I'm getting to know this guy. I'm having fun with this guy. Things weren't very serious. Well, things were serious, but I mean, things got real serious once we got engaged. And I feel like the time of dating was like evaluating if I actually enjoy Dihan and enjoy his presence, while getting engaged, there's a commitment. I mean, you said yes to a lifelong commitment already. You're not married, but you did say yes to this commitment. So there's an evaluation there's a deeper, more intimate evaluation. Not evaluation because you already made the decision, but I feel like in that time for me, I allowed myself to really get to know Dihan's leadership and how that would look for me to submit under him. So there were certain situations where I allowed him to make the decisions because in the spirit I could physically feel something is changing now. And although I'm not fully submitted to this guy, I did say yes. And I need to start learning to trust in his leadership. So it comes with a lot of discernment. But also I think, just to quickly add on what the Streicher said, when it comes to finances, because it's a big topic, it's always, anyways. I think just from outside perspective, like, if the guy wants to pay for you, let him pay. Like, it's such a big desire in a guy's heart to be able to provide. And if that's his way of loving you in a relationship, I'm not saying he should pay for everything, but like, don't fight that. If that's his way of loving you in that time, allow him. Because just like you are exploring how to submit and learning how to submit, he's learning to love you in that way as well and to care for you in that way as well. So allow him that space.
So, I'd like to finish off with one question towards you all. Do you believe that Christians are free? You can just do a nod if you agree. If you disagree, you can. Free of everything. We're free. We're free in a specific way. That's a good way of putting it. But the reason I'm asking that is, I want to end with this. A lot of what every one of us mentioned is that boundaries are super important. And the world will throw to you this: well, then Christians can't be free because they're putting up fences everywhere. And let me tell you this, there's actually one fence. There's one fence. And there's a gate in this fence. And that's a covenant. When it comes to relationships, there's one fence and a gate. And that gate is meant to be opened when you get married. Then you step through, no harm done. But as soon as we try to get closer to the fence before the time is right, closer to the gate before the time is right, then we find ourselves in a situation where we have to start putting up more fences. Because we'll go there, but not yet there. So we'll go to this spot, but we don't want to go all the way to the fence, so let's just put up a fence here so we're safe here where we are. And then you strangle through that fence and you get hurt. This is worst case scenario. And then you go a bit closer and you say, well, okay, let's put a fence up here and we'll put one up here because We don't want to go that way towards the fence, and we don't want to go that way. And so we start boxing ourselves in because we're trying to push the boundary. Does that make sense? But when we know that there's only one fence and it's way over there, then we can enjoy what we have right over here. And we don't, time will take us to the fence. Time will take us through the gate. And it's one step, and then you've got everything. But we shouldn't let our desires for pushing the boundary introduce more boundaries. But we are human, we do have flaws, so we do have to include a lot of boundaries. Okay? That's because we are flawed, and we're trying to get closer to that fence in certain ways. The more you remember that fence, that gate, less boundaries you're going to have to put up for yourself. And the easier everything will be before that. Just stay far away. Just stay far away. It is late. I thank you, Sitatis. I thank you, Streichers. It has been a fantastic evening. I hope you have enjoyed it. Can we just give a hand to the people? Thank you. Thank you, Tina. It has been fantastic. If you have any more questions, and you can please go through the website, get that WhatsApp. It's a church WhatsApp number. You can even find it on the church WhatsApp group, on the community. WhatsApp those questions right there, and they will definitely not be left unanswered. Well, if we can't find an answer, we'll seek it with you. God really does have the answer to everything. With that, I thank you, and I will pray for us. And there is warm popcorn outside, and warm drinks, and cold water. Lord, thank you that you have given us this beautiful thing called marriage. And thank you that we can open our eyes and look towards the beautiful covenant that you have for us. Lord, I pray that your Spirit show to us the glory of that. Lord, show to us the glory of love when the time is right. Lord, I pray that your Spirit will strengthen us in the seasons that we are in now. That we will be faithful to you. That we will seek you first and love you first. Seek your kingdom first, God. And may you be our central focus, our everything. Jesus, may we fall in love with you before we try falling in love with anything else. Jesus, you are beautiful. We praise your name. Amen. Amen. Have a blessed weekend. Remember worship night tomorrow night. And Sunday night, we're talking about could it be the one. Bless you guys. Amen.